they were breaking down. I mean, that's the best way to say it. So much so I brought somebody else in to help me. How about you? When do you know to grow? When do you when do you feel that pain and start growing?
Yeah, so for us, I think it was more, we had started down the process with systems, right, and implementing that on our own. Um, Again, part of the growth for us came because of, Tasha getting in the car wreck, right? We didn't really have a choice with me still being active. I couldn't go out and show the homes. And, after the wreck, she couldn't, walk really well for a couple weeks without pain, concussion and all that type of stuff. So, that sort of forced it. But even before that, we were looking at it and figuring out when to grow. And really for us, it came down to how many hours do we have in the day? How many folks are we serving? And again, we truly have a core belief that if you're going to buy a property in Southern California using a VA loan, we are the team you need to be talking to, right? We've been here 8+ years as a military family. We understand military life inside and out. 60% of our career clients have been military. This is what we know, understand, love doing, is helping our military families do this. And so for us, as we started getting on more and more clients and that reputation continued to build and really all organically for us, not doing paid leads or anything, it came to a point where we would not be able to serve our clients at the level that we wanted to without bringing on additional people to help. And that's really where it grew from and why we brought on additional agents. And that stems from every piece of the transaction to include going out and showing the homes, right? And in the market that we were in prior to the interest rate starting to shift it a little bit, speed to door was incredibly important, right? So for us to be a bottleneck to go show someone a house just was not highest and best use of our time, nor was it best serving our clients. And so we recognized that need, and that's what created that growth. And then from the growth perspective for us, we're fairly picky about who comes on the team, right? I mean, it's a lot of folks can talk to it, right? But for us, our group name is pretty simple. It's my last name and group. So I mean, our name is plastered all over it. Our reputation matters a lot, obviously, within the industry, within our military community. So we want to make sure that they're upholding those same standards. But also, we look for folks that are looking to transition possibly out of the military within the next year or two and want to build this business and help them build it before they transition, right? That's something that I've been able to do working with Tasha. So, that's part of what we look for when we're bringing on agents personally, because again, with so many of our past clients being military, we understand what that niche is for us and what our folks need to have as a background to be able to properly serve them.
Yeah, I like it. And I think that's a big thing you say too is, what if something goes wrong, right? Like what if, as we grow, what if something goes wrong? My name is also on my group. I think, Mike, I don't think yours is. You're smarter than the two of us, but my name is on it, right? If something goes wrong, and I say this all the time, if something goes wrong, they're not going to remember that one specific agent's name. They're going to remember my entire group name. And so there's always a concern. I think that's why it's a big deal when you bring people in and you add team members to your team. It's important to, one, have that same cultural appreciation inside of your team, right? You build that culture in your team. But two, I think it's important to bring in the right people. If you're not bringing in the right people and they're not, doing what you're hoping they're supposed to be doing, it could be catastrophic. You could literally take an entire team out. I think each of us see it all the time. There are teams who have mass exoduses of, their entire team, and then you're back to square one. And I hope that you haven't built a team where you're doing 300-400 deals a year and you lose everybody. I mean, not having that culture, not having those right pieces in place, those right people to help you along the way, I think could be, pretty devastating.
Right. And from a team lead perspective, I'd say too, if as your volume goes up, obviously you're going to have clients that are dissatisfied, right? And that doesn't mean that necessarily your team did something wrong or they're not the right people or whatever. It's just, it's not the right fit with that client for whatever reason, right? They may perceive something a certain way or whatever. So, as business owners, we take that in stride, right? And you take accountability for it. You try to fix it. You try to make sure the client's happy as they're going off on their own way if you part ways. But you can't satisfy everyone, even within like the military niche, et cetera. It's going to happen, right? And so we go through that, and we struggle with it personally as we bring up, our new agents and train them and everything else. They've got the best experience possible. We've got their backs and we're guiding everything. But sometimes clients look at things and they're like, oh, I didn't see you personally. You're not taking care of my deal. Well, no, I'm taking care of your deal behind the scenes so I can highest and best use of my time on negotiating and the things that truly matter, not on opening the door, not on sending out the offer email, whatever. But guess what? We're calling the agents to follow up, right, and negotiate. So it's just those types of things that you have to understand as a business owner. As you build a team, you are going to take a hit here and there, because there are some people that, regardless of what you tell them in the initial discussion, truly expect that they're going to deal with you and only you the entire time, right? And as a business owner, that's just not the case, right?
Yeah, and I was going to go back just for a minute and say, the systems break, and give an example of that, right? We talked about going from 6 to 35, right? That's an example. Going from a single agent doing 35 to wanting to run a team looks like a totally different set of systems, and that's a local team, like in-house, in-office, in-city. Then you do like David and I have done, and you go expansion, and that's a whole nother set of systems, right?
Yeah.
So you're constantly evolving and growing. Not saying everybody wants to get into expansion, but those are just examples of it gets more complex, and you have to have more dialed in systems because you're adding more humans to the equations, and you better have pretty good systems, contracts, and things of that nature to keep it not being muddy.
Yeah, I agree. Like I said, I am still a bit early for expanding, but once you start throwing in other things in the system, you're trying to move, from one state to another. You're trying to go from one city to another, from one office to another. It can get pretty dicey. I think that's why it's important, building from the ground up, making sure that your foundation is solid. That way, as your team increases and that weight that you put on that foundation increases, you're it's not going to break, right? And I think, like Mike and Dave both said, building those systems ahead of time, and even if they're tested, right, they're going to break, they're going to stretch,
Yep.
they're going to, all of this stuff's going to happen. The car didn't start off as a Ferrari, right? Ford built like the crappiest little, like what we would consider, like a moped compared to what we have nowadays. It didn't always start off perfect. And I think building that foundation, really setting yourself up for success, is a big thing. So, speaking of setting yourself up for success, it's obviously Military Education Day for us. So, I want to bring in how some of your background in the military helped you in making these decisions, where you drew on some of that experience from your time in the service and going forward. And, for me personally, I always tell everybody my favorite word is resilience, right? In the Army, I don't know if maybe in the Air Force they did this, but we used to have resiliency training, especially before and after deployment. And they would hammer you to death with PowerPoint slides. And I'm sure you guys in the Air Force know what PowerPoint slides are, but PowerPoint slides, and we call it death by PowerPoint, of just how to be resilient. Oh, if something goes wrong, don't sweat it, let it roll off your back. You have to bounce back, right? I think no other term, at least in my book, is more important in real estate than being resilient, right? Not every deal is going to go right. Not every deal is going to close. Not every client is going to be perfect. And certainly not everybody on the other side of the transaction is going to be great either, right? So, Mike, if you want to start with you, what are some things that you've brought in from your time in service that you apply to your business, whether it's being resilient, your leadership, teamwork? What are some things, maybe some nuggets even you've brought in from the military, where you've said, hey, this applies not just to my service, this applies in my business as well?
Yeah. Oh man, cut me off, because I could go off all day on this conversation.
All right, starting the timer now.
So, the big core value is the service before self. I'm a huge believer in that. If I can help others win and succeed in a teamwork environment, I'm a big believer in together we do more, right? I do think you need that. I think 3 strands are stronger than 1 strand, right? We could go all these scenarios all day long. So, I'm a big believer in that. I think the other thing for me was, mission first. I mean, that was always what the military wanted, mission first. And so what is our goals? What's our objectives? I don't quit. I'm not a failure. I mean, I'll fail forward, but I don't quit, right? I'm just going to figure it out. And I think that when you're put in those environments in the military, that's what they do. Go figure it out. We're not coming in to save you. We're not coming in to help you. You better just go figure it out, right? And so for me, I think that discipline around all of that was really important and critical to me. And, the teamwork aspect, as well as, service before self. That's really my main mission, is how can we help others win? And by them winning, we win. We all win together. Why not do that?
Love it. Dave, what about you? What are some things you brought in from your military experience? I know you guys got a lot going on over there too. So what are some things you guys brought in?
Yeah, so I mean, we take the same approach with service before self, right? And really, with us, it's one of the mottos for us within our real estate team is service, not sales, right? Making sure that clients don't feel like, yes, there's sales associated with this, obviously, but making sure they're not being sold something, right? That they're coming to their own terms and buying their properties. Uh, on our team side, right? To me, the team environment is very important, right? So the culture, recognizing folks for doing good works, right? I mean, there's a reason why in the military, for example, especially within acquisition, career field, and stuff, you have company grade and field grade officer of the quarter, right, and of the year, and team of the year, and all that type of stuff. So, we like to recognize our folks. That's been a huge piece of our culture. Again, translating that from the military side, so doing like Millionaires Club, each month for people that hit those milestones, time with leadership, that type of thing. Recognizing team members on calls, and then like trying to use team credibility, right? Again, this is all like Mike said, we go further together. Three strands are stronger than one. For us, we like our team to put out what their accomplishments are, and then the other team members to celebrate those accomplishments by taking those and posting them online, right? And that does a few things as you're looking to build. It helps prop up the other team members and identify what they've done that's well. It identifies what the team did well. It provides more credibility for those agents, which in turn creates more buzz on social media and more clients overall that we can serve right at the highest level. So bringing those types of things in, my military background, I've run programs up to 560 million plus doing satellite vehicle integrations. I've had 100 plus member teams. So bringing those types of things in, and those were geographic separated teams, bringing those principles over has definitely been helpful. From that background to be able to run something like we're doing in the military environment and doing it in 3 states. Like Mike said, it's different when you go to the expansion model, right? And you start expanding out and you're running stuff in multiple different states. You can't call everybody to a local location and be like, hey guys, we need to get together and talk, right? The culture that you're creating has to be able to extend across, doing it on the internet and Zoom and all that type of stuff to be able to be implemented in each location, and so do the systems. And so the tools as you set them up, I would say one of the other things, the resilience, obviously very important. We all face setbacks in this industry every day, right? You don't know if a transaction is going to close till it actually closes. Someone could decide at the last minute. And so teaching our agents that as well. And for us, it helps that they come from a military background. So they've at least got a component of that coming out of the military. But also when we're building our team, we try to visualize what that end state's going to look like, right? And not down to the nth detail, because you can't really do that when you're in the building phase, but just trying to figure out where we're trying to get to as far as like states, number of team members, how many people we want to serve, that type of thing. Because then you can backtrack that, right? Those are your requirements from a satellite system acquisition perspective, right? Those are your requirements, and you can backtrack that to then build out your system to be able to support that and implement the pieces along the way. And so that's the approach that we've taken. I've taken a lot from my acquisition background into the real estate side.
Yeah, same. So it's a little different. I worked in medicine, right? So for me, whether it's how much money we manage or how much of these things, I know like at least in ours we have NCOERs, or for officers we had OERs. Our reports always write down, I manage $200 million of equipment, and you put your bullet points in. For me, it was always how many patients had we seen, right? How many people had we treated? How many this? Yep. How many that have we? Have we expedited service? Have we made appointment times lower? For me, I've always said, and I tell everybody this all the time, we don't chase a check, we chase an experience for our clients, right? We want our clients to be happy. We want our clients to feel like, hey, when we're with the Whetstone Home Group or when we have a realtor from them, our experience is amazing, right? And that was how, out of at least my experience in the military always was, other than running around with a bunch of infantrymen, who that's a whole side story. Now we won't get into any late night drunk stories, but besides running around with those guys, when you're in garrison, which means when you're back home on base and not deployed or out training, when you're in garrison, a lot of times it's about that customer service. It's about, your people, which typically as a line medic, you have 30 guys that are with you. Are they being taken care of? Are they happy with what's going on? Do they have any problems that need to be solved? I've always approached business from that medic mindset, right? I need to take care of whoever's with me.